Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to a long kind of tutorial. Basically, I've got a coffee next to me and I have a project slated in front of me, and I'm going to show you guys how I edit my Instagrams that I shoot on my GH5. And this one in particular is a little hut trip that I did with a bunch of friends. We went out skiing and snowboarding deep in the backcountry. And yeah, I'm just going to make a fun little Instagram from that. And this is going to be a long kind of walkthrough on my editing process. So maybe this is interesting to some of you. Maybe some of you are more advanced and might find this a little slow. Either way, here we go. So I'm in Premiere Pro. That's what I use to edit, Premiere Pro CC. But I think a lot of this will transfer over to Final Cut Pro X as well. I use Final Cut on occasion, and there are a lot of similarities. So I've set up my editing studio like this. I have all my files here on the left. I have my source monitor here, and this is my timeline monitor on the right here, and the timeline below. So I set up a sequence already to make my selects, and that is always my first process in making a film. I basically go through all of my footage and I select the in and the out points of the little parts that I like, so that I basically have a little sandbox of all my favorite shots ready to go, and it also ensures that I don't miss anything. So that's what this source monitor in the middle is here. I can basically double click on a clip and then I drag to where I like. Oh, there's a good shot of Tyler taking a slam. Didn't like that. And the next part here, there's Mark, not the best shot either. So I can just go through all of my clips and just try and find the parts that I like. Let's see. So this is a bit of a longer process. I won't necessarily show you guys the entire process because it's a bit tedious, but basically I go through all my footage. I press I, set the in point, and then I press O to set the out point, and then I just drag the video only and I put it down here in the timeline. You'll notice that some of my shots are sideways. That's because I knew I was going to shoot for Instagram. So I will rotate those when I actually get into editing the Instagram. For now, I'm just worried about selecting the best moments. Yeah, it's a nice day out there. Got some good skiing in. Went and did some pretty ambitious lines, which was fun. And shot it all on my GH5, 4K at 60 frames a second. Cindy, if you want my settings, you can check them out. I have a lot of videos on my settings. But yeah, we got some really cool shots. But I won't bore you guys by showing you the entire selects process. All I can say is highly encourage you to go through all of your footage after the shoot and put it in one timeline, all your favorite shots. I used to not do this, and I missed out on a lot of good shots that I didn't even end up looking at. And another little tip is I like to start at the end of my shots. So I start at the end of the trip because usually the last shots are better. The lighting's usually a little bit better late in the day. So start at the back and just go through all your selects, and I will meet up with you guys once I've done that. All right, now I have all of my selects in one timeline here, so I can just drag and drop them. I have a good idea of the footage I want to use, and now I will make the actual sequence that I'm going to edit my Instagram in. This is for my Instagram post, not for a story. So I'll go up, File, New, Sequence, and I will call it Instagram Hut Trip. And then I'll go to Settings, and I'll change the frame size to the max that Instagram allows, which is 1350 by 1080, so a vertical 5:4. And I will press OK. Make sure that your time base is the same. I shot in 24 frames a second. And press OK. So now I have my actual sequence. Actually, I think I might have done this backwards here. 1080 by 1350. That's what we wanted. Sorry, I did that backwards. Then we want this size frame. And now I can just bounce between my selects and my actual Instagram hut video. and start to piece this thing together. So I'm going to start here. I think I want to start with an engaging shot. As always, like when people are scrolling Instagram, you want to start with something that catches their eye. Obviously, it seems obvious, but sometimes you forget and you start with one of the more bland shots because you want to save the best shots for later. But in my opinion, it's worth starting with some of the better shots you have just to grab people and make sure they stick around. So I drag this shot of Callie in right here, boom. And I'm going to want to now scale it up, obviously, because we are in a new dimension, 5:4 vertical. And yeah, this is a pretty good shot to start with, and I can reframe now as I want. So maybe we start it right about here. Drag that. Cool, we have our first shot right there. Beautiful shot of Callie just ripping the powder. Ripping. Very nice. And then it's also worth noting music. I already know what song I'm going to use. I'm going to use a song that I found a long time ago. And I basically want the vibe of this to be like relaxing and calming. And I found the perfect song. I will show you guys right now.
There's a
Perfect. And yeah, when I'm finding music, I don't mind using copyrighted music if I'm not getting paid for a project. If it's for personal use, I do use copyrighted music on my Instagram all the time. People ask me how. And, if I'm not getting paid, I'm not worried about getting sued. That's a personal opinion. Do whatever you feel comfortable doing. So I have this song in place and this beautiful shot of Callie. And now I'm just going to start to kind of piece the edit together. I want it to go from her snowboarding, so it grabs people's attention. And then I'm going to kind of go to these shots I have of us in the hut that we stayed in. I'm going to lock off this audio track here so I don't crush it by anything that I bring in. I want to cut to basically shots of us in the hut, planning our next moves. So I'll bring these shots in, and then I need to go to the effects panel and just kind of scale these up to where I want them. It's a nice shot of Tyler looking at the map. Another map shot there. Scale it up. Perfect. Shot of Callie scoping some lines from the hut. Scale up. Move it around. Good. And then a shot of what she was looking at. Beautiful. Cool. So already we can see the story coming together. So someone's scrolling Instagram, they see this nice shot of Callie riding. Maybe I'll trim that a little bit. I don't want it to be longer than 4 seconds. That's a bit much. And then right there we got Tyler looking at the map. There, so it's already a little bit of a story. It's like we're scouting our next lines. And then I'm going to try and I have this one shot. This is the one of Hayden and Callie riding at the same time. And I think this would be kind of cool just to put right here. And again, reframe it. Let's see where the framing looks best. So I want it over a bit. It'd be nice to include both of them. And maybe back a little bit there. Nice shot. Snow flies up, and we'll end it probably right about there. I think we could probably start it a bit later as well. I want to respect people's time. That's the one thing I'm always thinking when I'm editing. I want to make sure that I respect people's time and not just make things longer than they need to be. Remember that this is your life and it's a lot more interesting to you than it is to other people. And just remember that maybe not every shot is as good as you think, because these are people, this is your life, so it means a bit more to you maybe. I have these close-up shots of Hayden putting on her touring skis. So basically, I want to change up the story a bit. I want it to go from us kind of scoping our lines, looking at the mountain, and then I'll put in some shots of us actually kind of touring and boot packing up. I want those to be the next shots, because then it's a bit more of a story of our mission to get to the top. I will paste those in there. So we've got us looking at the lines we're going to ski, and then we got the shot of Mark just boot packing right up to the top of Banana Chutes. It's our first time doing this run, and yeah, it was about 5 hours into the Whistler backcountry or so. Really fun day. Actually pretty sketchy, this boot pack here. Definitely something that you don't want to fall on. It was pretty steep and icy, and we were like 200 feet up a pretty rocky mountain. So anyways, really fun adventure. So it goes from us in the hut and then boot packing up to the top of Banana Chutes, and then shredding right here. Bam. Cool. And then I have a couple shots at sunset. We're kind of, if you look at us working through the day, that's how I'm going to think of this edit. It's a bit of a progression through the day. There's a shot of Hayden and a shot of Callie that we already used. But we will just throw in this shot of Mark right here. Little sunset turn. Scale it up. Make sure we like the whole section. And we want to reframe it, obviously. A little more. Don't want him skiing into the edge of our frame. Boom, like that. And grab the final shot of Hayden. Ripping there. Sunset. Scale it up. Reframe. Reframe a bit more. Maybe end it right about there. And then I've got this nice blue hour shot of the mountain. Super early morning, and I think we will end it on that. Just a nice kind of sunset to blue hour, and we're done. And now for the fun part, I can start to add in a little bit of flair to this edit. So, usually I use my LUTs, and here is my vintage grain pack as well. So I'm going to want to throw on some different grains. I want this to kind of feel like a nostalgic little video. So I'll just throw this grain over top, and I will reframe it as everything is, boom, fits over top. And at the start of the file name on all of my grain overlays, it tells you what mode to set your opacity to. So this one is overlay. I will scroll down under opacity, click overlay, and then usually I put the opacity for my grains around like 70% or so. And that's pretty high, but I want this to look kind of cool. And then I will also throw in a cool little transition of one of my light leaks. All right, let's see, it's right there. And then maybe a little burn right there. Throw it on top of here. Again, we'll need to reframe it. I really like to use light leaks as a transition. It's just a stylistic thing. It's my personal opinion. Everybody's different. Again, the opacity mode needs to be set to the file name. It says screen, so I'm going to go screen. And then I can make this a bit bigger and basically adjust the opacity to add a little flare in here. I'm also going to move. I liked the edge of this flare a lot, so I'm going to reframe it so we get just the edge. Scrolling around. Where's the edge? I can't even find it. So right as the transition comes in, I'll maybe pop this up a little bit. Nice little flare. And then down like that. Boom. Let me find the edge of this. There it is. Cool. So we got a nice little film burn there to add a little bit of flavor to the edit. And I think I'm going to keep this grain going throughout the entire edit. So what I'm going to do, as you'll see, it's only about a 10-second grain clip, but I'm going to click it and say nest. And we'll call it grain. And I'll click OK. And then I'll double click it. And it's now in its own sequence. So I can go copy and I can just paste it and make a longer version of the grain. And then what that allows me to do is just drag this sequence out across my whole project. And then I will need to go to the blend mode again and redo that, click overlay and change the opacity to whatever I want it to be. And now we have grain across the whole piece. And that's the one thing, professional looking films or videos, you know, consistency. It's all about consistency. That's the biggest tell I find if something's amateur looking is when all the shots look kind of different colors and, you know, different grain on them. So finding that consistency. Then I'm going to add this light leak in a few more times. Just lock off these layers, copied it, press paste. I think we'll probably want it at the end here. And then another little thing I've been enjoying doing is adding some vinyl sound effects. So there we go. We got a nice little film burn at the end there. There we go. And yeah, I've already added some color correction to this. I just used one of my LUTs. I used the Brighton Summer LUT and then adjusted it a little bit from there, but pretty basic stuff. And you can see the flare. And I just want to make sure that all of the clips are relatively well balanced. I used the same LUT on all of them. So they're looking pretty good, and you can check out my LUT pack in the description below. You can check out my vintage grain pack in the description below as well. I might add one more flare in right before they drop after we've gone up the mountain just to make it kind of retro and exciting. Oh yeah, I like that part. So we're going up the mountain, effect controls, switch it to screen, opacity, and scale it up. Move it over a little bit. I like find the corners the most interesting parts of these flares. Okay. And lower the opacity. Lower it. Let's make this timeline a bit bigger. So I want the flare to hit right around this transition point right here. It's just kind of a fun way to transition in between clips. Add a little bit of a unique look to your footage. Don't want it to be too strong though. And just setting keyframes by pressing Command and clicking. Boom. There we go. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I also might add a little bit of a vinyl sound effect, a little bit of crackling at the start and the end. It's just a little personal touch that I do. But yeah, this is pretty much how I go about making an Instagram using my GH5 footage or any footage for that matter. You know, the key things are the aspect ratio, making sure it's maxing out the full size that Instagram lets you do. And then I'll show you guys how I export for Instagram. I actually have a preset already that I made a while ago, an export preset for Instagram based off their recommended file sizes. So I can just click up here and go to Instagram 2pass. That's my preset, but I'll run you guys through. Basically, it keeps the same aspect ratio, 1080 by 1350. Make sure your frame rate is the same. Field order progressive. Square pixels, render at maximum depth, click that. And then profile high, level 5.0. And I set my target bitrate to 30 and my maximum bitrate to 100 for Instagram. You know, everyone's a little bit different with that, but I like to overshoot a little bit. And yeah, those are the settings for my Instagram. For Instagram when I'm posting to my feed. For Instagram stories, it's slightly different. Let me know if you want a video on that. Anyways, thanks for watching. This is just kind of a long, rambly tutorial. If you guys enjoyed this, please let me know below. I have a bit more time right now to sit down and do some of these long tutorials where you guys can just join me and kind of watch my process. I'm trying to do my best to explain things. I'm sure there's things that I glazed over or glossed over because I've been doing this for a while now. But if you enjoyed, please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video.
There's a silver moon, a symphony of stars.